Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Your Number One Fan podcast. Today I have Giselle with me. I'm really excited. I discovered her on TikTok and she is right up my alley with everything she talks about. I'm so excited to get into it and talk about happiness. And her explanation of manifesting is very interesting and cool to me. Her story is really cool to me. It's all about creating your own life. And I think it's more attainable to people and something that a lot of people can jump on board with when it's more creating your life instead of this manifesting idea that you're going to say it and it's going to come to you. Like, a lot of people have the wrong idea of manifesting to begin with. But I'm really excited to talk. I think this conversation will be perfect for my whole goal of this podcast, which is inspiring and just giving tools to listeners to create your dream life and just live authentically and just stop letting the days go by where you're not happy. Be happy in the moment that you are in before you feel like you've made it or, whatever you're going for. So thank you, Giselle. And we just talked a little bit before, but if you could introduce yourself a little bit and share where you're at right now and like your business. I know you're a writer, you're a hypnotherapist, you do a lot of things, got some courses going on. So you have the floor. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me in the podcast. I'm really happy to be here. So, what I do is I speak through the lenses of someone that experienced trauma and wounds and hurts and was able to come out of that after a life of a lot of darkness and create a life that feels amazing, a life that society would not have said I could have as a person that I grew up in. And when I retraced how did I go from, twice trying to commit suicide to having sustainable happiness, I made the connection that it was through steps of happiness and through connecting that thoughts create. And then I explored that enough to kind of put pieces together. And then I got an opportunity of 3 weeks where I got to not have parenting duties. My kids were off with their dad, living their best life, having a Mediterranean vacation. Which at first I was so sad. I'm like, how am I going to be without them for 3 weeks? And then I realized I had been gifted time, and I took that time to be in meditation for the majority of the day. And I was literally overlooking the ocean as I was just in meditation the majority of the day, because my purpose was I wanted to receive learnings directly from the universe. And I had already done a lot of work to prime myself to be in a receiving mode. And I got I got what felt like, I mean, there's not another English word to use, but it isn't it. It felt almost overwhelming, but it's not overwhelming. It was almost over empowering. Like it was so big that I spent a year in isolation afterwards, just keeping my family and my kids close, but isolating myself from most of society and determining how do I use these techniques myself, because I knew how to teach it, but I knew giving concepts were going to be absolutely useless. Like I wanted actual, how can you use this? So I started to use it. And then it took about a year. And then finally I was like, okay, it's time. Or I actually through an interaction that prompted that it was time. And then I got past the fear that I was about to talk about things that were going to sound really crazy. And I put it out there, but now I had practical steps. Now it wasn't, here are these concepts and figure out how to use it. It was, here are really like clear ways to use it. And it was well received. And so I've used that as is the message that I send. I've always done some sort of healing or some sort of subconscious type work, and conscious work and subconscious work. But be after that year experience, it was just a game changer. Things that I used to say, I realized were wrong, and like I had new information. It just completely changed my life.
Yeah. I did learn some of your story on TikTok, and first, I'm so happy that you're here. I can definitely resonate with the feeling in a very dark place. So it's really important to share these things because it can feel very isolating to have these feelings, but it's hard to talk about that. So thank you for sharing that because I know that's vulnerable. But that's amazing that you were able to have those 3 weeks. And I think that just goes to show that things will open up for you if you're willing and looking for, things to change. Did you have like an introduction to meditation and everything? Like, are you a first generation person in this space, or did somebody teach it to you? Because I was introduced to like the church a little bit, but we weren't really that connected to it. In the last couple of years, I'm like, this is my jam. Like, I love this like universe source type thing. It feels really comforting to know that something's there, but I haven't really gotten into meditation because I feel like my brain does not let me, which I think is another subject in itself. But back to the question, did you always meditate? Who got you into this stuff if it wasn't
So
yourself?
I did grow up in spirituality. It was African based spirituality in the Caribbean. So I never grew up in Christianity. So I can't, I know enough about it to know like where some of the restrictions are and where some of the blocks are in the indoctrination of it. Not, I don't believe in the core concept. Like, I don't think the blocks are in the core concept. I think the blocks are in the indoctrination of it. Um, but I grew up in spirituality, meaning ghosts and seances and things that just aren't common in the United States society, but are very common in the Caribbean. So there was that, but I did not grow up meditating at all. Um, and when I tried to learn, and I don't even remember when I tried to learn. I mean, everything always feels 2 to 3 years ago, but then like when I do them, I'm like, was that really 2 to 3 years ago? I feel like I used 2 to 3 years ago for everything, but it was a few years ago. However, I was trying to meditate how I had seen meditation to be. So I remember trying to sit in the lotus position. I remember thinking that was because even just the other day, I went to YouTube to see how are people talking about meditation, and they're still talking about it like this. And I think the way that is being talked about is a block, is actually a hindrance to being able to meditate. And I was trying to sit in the lotus position, and that my back had to be a certain way for me to receive something. I don't even know, but it was like I had to sit with my back really straight in the lotus position. I had to clear my mind, and it was so much work. I was uncomfortable. I couldn't clear my mind, and I just felt like I was going against what was supposed to be a flow. Um, and then I stopped that and I said, I'm not going to follow these directions for meditation. I'm just going to let meditation lead me into how to meditate. And the way that I started meditating became more of a visualization, an inward visualization, focusing on my breath, focusing on relaxation, but also letting it guide me, and that changed everything. Then next to that came hypnosis, and I got to experience that, and then eventually became a transpersonal hypnotherapist. And I am of the core belief that that line of direct communication is a form of meditation. And meditation could literally be with your eyes open, looking at the ocean. That can be a form of meditation. Or it can be with your eyes closed in visualization. It can be in scripting and allowing your mind to just not be guiding, but you tap into your subconscious, and that can be meditation. It could be creative art, could be meditation. But it's in
Mhm.
that quieting of the mind enough, not fully, but just reducing the chatter so that your subconscious can lead the way. And any way that that allows it to happen is a form of meditation.
I love that because I don't even think to question these things when I feel like I'm not an expert in something. My brain doesn't even say like, "Oh, is this practical?" So that makes so much sense to me. Like for when I've tried to meditate and things like that, I've been told to like sit like that and ground yourself and feel the rope through your head down to your butt and whatever. And I feel like it does work to ground you and it feels really good. But at the same time, I'm like thinking about the position that I'm in. I'm thinking about other things. So I feel like some people it might work for and other people it doesn't. And I just love that you're kind of like cutting away these barriers. I just feel like that's so helpful. And it might be something like people just automatically say no because I'll feel silly. So that's not an excuse now, you know? So where also is like, because I feel like you're kind of teetering on mindfulness as well. So meditating and mindfulness, do you feel like they're the same thing, or mindfulness can kind of be more in the moment, even more than that, like what you're explaining with writing and just looking at the horizon and everything? Because in my understanding, mindfulness is more like I can be mindful right now. I can feel myself in my chair and my pen in my hand and everything like that.
So what you just described when you were saying, I feel like that sitting position helped me and I could envision like, the openness, that's a form of mindfulness. You were in your body in the present moment at that time. And we need to do that several times a day, where we come call our energy back, be aware of like, oh, here's my computer, here's the desk, and the minor little things that just brings you back to the present moment. And I wanted to also say I have a friend, and even one I have a friend who could sit in that lotus position for hours. So it does have, it depends how flexible you are, how familiar you are with yoga, but that's not the average person. The average person is not going to be able to sit in the lotus position and then also let themselves go because they're so focused on my back is hurting, I'm not that comfortable,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
close to letting go. With meditation, the difference that I see between that, so mindfulness is being in the present moment. And you can begin your meditation through mindfulness. But if you're looking to take me greater consciousness out of the body experience and take me into the spiritual realm, you're leaving mindfulness. Your body is staying put,
Hmm. Hmm.
but your subconscious is rejoining into the greater consciousness. And so, therefore, you are no longer in that present moment. You might go who knows where at that point. You might go future, you might go past. You might start to see visions, a greater vision. You might start to receive guidance. Like so much can happen within meditation. So mindfulness can start the process, but at one point, meditation takes you into the spiritual realm.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And you kind of just were talking about feeling the moment like I was saying, and that's something that I do all the time, and people kind of laugh at me, but my husband like knows it's coming sometimes because like today he was with our son and he was playing and I'm like, take it in, like smell, see, hear, feel, like remember this moment. And I like do it from remembering things and like fully taking it in. But too, like on my walks I'm like looking at everything and feeling everything, and it really helps. It just feels like a gratitude too, and like just taking it all in and feeling really thankful for the moment that you're in. And that just reminded me, I was listening to a podcast, Mel Robbins. I don't know if you are familiar with her, but she was talking about this is kind of related, not really, but she was talking about how gratitude lists are so
Yeah.
helpful and so good for you. So with meditation, so I guess we'll kind of talk about some tools for feeling, creating your life in happiness. So meditation, mindfulness, how about gratitude? Like, do you feel that that has helped you a lot? And I know sometimes it's hard to find things to be grateful for. Where should people like start with that list? Because I start with like the roof over my head type things, or sometimes I'll say my son's health, my son's doctors. Like, things like that.